The world of Nerath 9 was covered in endless snow. It was a forgotten colony, a place where storms lasted for weeks and the sun barely touched the ground. Most humans had left long ago when the planet was declared too cold for life. But one man stayed behind, Ethan Cole, a quiet engineer who had lost too much to leave. He lived with his 8-year-old daughter, Lila, in a small cabin built from old metal and wood. Every morning, Ethan woke early to check the power cells, the heat generator, and the roof for cracks. The storms were cruel. One weak joint and the roof could collapse. Lila would help by cleaning the snow from the entryway and feeding their small heater bot, a round machine that burned frozen fuel blocks. Life was hard, but they had learned to smile through it. Ethan had been a ship mechanic once before the fall of the Terran colonies. Now he fixed old drones and sold parts to passing traders. He taught Lila how to read old maps, repair machines, and survive the cold. "The world won't care for you," he would say, "so you learn to care for yourself." She always answered with a grin, "Like you care for me, Dad." One afternoon, the weather started to turn bad. The sky darkened and the winds picked up. Ethan was returning from a trade post on his hover sled when he saw something strange on the horizon, a flash of silver buried in ice. It wasn't natural. He slowed the sled and brushed off the snow. What he found made his breath freeze. A metal pod lay half buried, its surface smooth and curved like liquid glass. It was scorched, the kind of damage made by re-entry from space. A faint light blinked from a small crack in its surface. Ethan hesitated. There hadn't been ships here for years, maybe decades. "Lila," he whispered to himself, thinking of his daughter waiting back home. "I can't just leave it." He used his repair torch to melt the ice and pried open the hatch. A hiss of cold vapor escaped. Inside, a small figure was curled up in a glowing blanket. It was not human. The child's skin was faintly silver, her hair white as snow, and her eyes, closed, glowed faintly beneath the lids. She was breathing, but weakly. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He wrapped the girl in his coat and lifted her out. She was light, too light. He carried her to the sled and sped through the storm, wind slicing against his face. The snow grew thicker, but he didn't stop. It took him hours to reach the cabin. Lila was waiting at the door, worried. "Dad, you're late. What's that?" she cried when she saw the small shape in his arms. "Found her in a crash pod," he said, his voice rough from the cold. "She's alive, but barely." Together, they warmed her near the heater and gave her water. Lila held the girl's hand gently. The alien child flinched at first, then relaxed, her breathing steadier. When her eyes finally opened, Ethan almost stepped back. They were a bright silver blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked around, frightened, speaking in a soft, musical language they couldn't understand. "It's okay," Ethan said slowly, pointing to himself. "Ethan," he then pointed to Lila. "Lila." The girl blinked, studying them both. Then she touched her chest weakly and said, "Arinal." Lila smiled. "Arinal," she repeated. The alien child gave a small nod, and for the first time, a faint smile crossed her lips. Over the next few days, the storm outside grew worse. They were trapped inside the cabin, cut off from the outside world. Ethan used the time to study the crash pod. Its design was nothing he recognized. No human alloy, no Terran code. It carried strange symbols that looked more like art than text. The technology inside was far beyond anything he'd seen. Whoever made it wasn't just advanced. They were from a civilization humanity had never met. Meanwhile, Arinal slowly began to recover. She was shy, quiet, and easily startled, but she watched everything with wide curiosity. She followed Lila around the cabin, mimicking her movements. Lila found it funny and began teaching her simple words: fire, food, friend. Arinal learned quickly, repeating words with a soft accent. Ethan couldn't help but feel protective of her. She reminded him of Lila when she was younger, lost, afraid, and fragile. He didn't know where she came from or who might be looking for her, but he knew one thing: she didn't deserve to die in the snow. On the fourth night, something strange happened. Ethan was fixing a broken power conduit when the cabin light suddenly brightened. The old generator hummed and the flickering heater stabilized as if brand new. He checked the readings. Power levels were full, though they shouldn't have been. He turned around and saw Arinal standing near the heater, her small hand resting on the metal surface. Faint light rippled from her skin into the machine. Ethan froze. Arinal, what are you doing? She looked up, tilting her head. Help, she said in broken English. Then she smiled, as if proud of herself. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. What kind of being could charge an old reactor just by touching it? He thought about the pod again, the advanced design and the strange markings. Whoever she wasn't just a traveler. She was important. Maybe too important. A week later, when the storm finally cleared, Ethan stepped outside to check the horizon. He saw no sign of rescue ships, no signals in the sky, only silence. But deep down, he knew that someone, somewhere, must be searching for her. Inside, Arinal was playing with Lila, laughing softly as they built small towers of metal scraps. For a moment, the cabin felt alive again, filled with warmth instead of wind. Ethan stood quietly at the doorway, watching them both. He didn't know it yet, but the decision he made that day, to take an alien child from the snow and bring her into his home, would change everything. His small act of kindness would reach beyond the frozen world, across light years into the heart of empires. For now, though, he was just a father trying to keep his family safe. The galaxy could wait, and somewhere far above the storm clouds, among the stars Arinal had once called home, faint signals began to pulse. Someone had found the trace of a lost royal pod. The search had begun. The storm had passed, leaving behind a quiet world covered in endless white. The snow sparkled under the faint sunlight like a sea of frozen glass. Ethan Cole stood on the ridge near his cabin, scanning the horizon with his old binoculars. The sky was clear, but something didn't feel right. For weeks, he had been trying to fix the small transmitter inside the alien pod. He wanted to know where it came from. The pod's power system had repaired itself thanks to Arinal's strange ability, but the signal was still weak and unstable. Every time Ethan thought he had it working, the frequency changed into symbols and tones that made no sense. Inside the cabin, Lila and Arinal were playing near the fire. Arinal's health had fully returned. Her skin no longer looked pale, and her silver eyes shone with quiet strength. She had learned more human words and could now speak short sentences. Her voice was soft, musical, and calm. "Cold today?" she said, rubbing her hands together. Lila nodded. "Always cold here." Arinal smiled. "I like warm light," she said, pointing at the small fire. "Fire is happy." Ethan overheard them and smiled slightly. In just a few weeks, the alien girl had become part of their small family. She helped Lila cook, learned to fix simple tools, and even tried to feed the heater bot one morning, though she put the fuel blocks in upside down, making Lila laugh until she fell over. But something about Arinal still troubled Ethan. He noticed how machines reacted to her. Metal objects hummed when she passed, and broken tools seemed to repair faster in her hands. She could sense power and heat like an instinct. One night, while the two girls slept, Ethan sat alone near the old radio, tuning through static. Suddenly, a faint rhythm appeared, a series of pulses. It wasn't random. It repeated in perfect intervals. He leaned closer. The signal was strong, too strong for this dead planet. He adjusted the frequency and a line of alien symbols flashed on the small screen. He quickly copied them down and compared them to the writing inside Arinal's pod. They matched exactly. His chest tightened. Someone was looking for her. The next morning, Ethan quietly asked Arinal about the symbols. She froze. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then in a whisper, she replied, "Not good." "They find who?" Ethan asked softly. She hesitated, her silver eyes dimming. "Hunters, bad ones. Want me dead." Ethan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold outside. He didn't understand the whole story, but he could tell she was afraid. Lila, listening from the corner, looked confused. "Why would anyone want to hurt you?" she asked innocently. Arinal turned away. "Because I am not nobody." That night she couldn't sleep. She sat near the window, staring up at the stars. Ethan joined her quietly. "You can tell me, he said gently. "I won't let anyone hurt you." Arinal looked at him, then at the stars. "My home," she began slowly. "Not one world. 7 worlds, all connected. Big family. I was there." Before fall, Ethan frowned. "Before what fall?" She struggled with the words. "There was peace, then fire. My family gone, I sent away." She placed her hand on her chest. "I am Arinal Velsha, daughter of the High Queen of the 7 worlds." Ethan stared at her, stunned. "You mean you're a princess?" She nodded slightly, sadness in her eyes. Lost one. Everyone think I am gone. If they find me, there will be war. He didn't know what to say. The quiet child he'd rescued in the snow was not just an alien. She was the heir of a galactic empire. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but firm. You're safe here. I won't tell anyone, Arinal smiled weakly. Thank you, Ethan. The next few days were tense. Ethan hid the alien pod under a pile of snow and metal parts. He knew the signal had gone out. Someone might come. He started preparing supplies, extra fuel, and emergency routes through the frozen canyons. Then, one evening, the sky changed. A strange light appeared, blue and silver, like a slow-moving star. It wasn't natural. It hovered in orbit, blinking softly. Ethan ran to his scanner. The signal was strong again, pulsing with the same pattern. Arinal saw it too. She grabbed his arm. They are here. Within hours, he detected small crafts entering the atmosphere. They weren't human. Drones shaped like silver arrows flew over the mountains, scanning the surface. Ethan and the girls hid in the underground storage area. The machines passed over once, twice, then circled back. Lila clung to Arinal. They'll find us, she whispered. No, Arinal said quietly. She closed her eyes and the air around them shimmered faintly. The scanner lights on the drone above flickered, then dimmed. It turned away, confused, and flew off. When the danger passed, Ethan looked at her in amazement. You just made it blind. She nodded, breathing heavily. Energy cloak. Learned from my mother. Ethan realized she was more than royalty, she was powerful. But that also meant the people searching for her would not stop. The next day, Ethan found his old cargo sled and began packing. We can't stay here, he told the girls. If they come back with soldiers, this place won't protect us. Where will we go? Lila asked. Ethan looked at the map. There's an abandoned mining base 50 kilometers east. Shielded walls. We'll make it. They left at dawn. The sky was pale blue, the air thin and cold. Ethan drove the sled while Lila and Arinal sat behind him, wrapped in thick blankets. The snow stretched endlessly in all directions. Halfway there, a thunder-like roar echoed above them. A ship, large and glowing with blue light, passed overhead. Arinal tensed. That is royal ship, she said. My people, Ethan frowned. If they're your people, why are we running? She looked at him sadly. Because not all my people are good. Some want throne. Some want me gone forever. They reached the mining base by nightfall and hid inside an old hangar. The walls still carried the Terran logo, now covered with frost. They set up camp inside, using old crates as tables. As they ate a small meal, Lila asked, Arinal, if you're a princess, does that make me your sister? Arinal smiled and nodded. Yes, sister of my heart. Lila giggled, and for a moment the fear lifted, but Ethan could not relax. Outside he saw the reflection of light moving across the snow, search beams. Ships were landing in the valley below. He turned off the heater and whispered, They're here. Arinal stood up, her silver eyes glowing softly. They come for me, but they will not take me. Ethan took his old plasma rifle and stood beside her. He wasn't a soldier, but he would fight for both his daughters. The night sky above the mining base shimmered as alien. Searchlights swept the ground. The father who once fixed broken machines was now preparing to defy an empire, and far above, on the royal ship, the Queen of the Seven Worlds watched the surface of the frozen planet, unaware that the man she was about to confront had already become her daughter's protector. Part 3. The father who defied 7 worlds. The night outside the old mining base was silent but not peaceful. The snow reflected the lights of alien ships hovering far in the distance. Search drones moved across the frozen valley, scanning every ridge and cave. The air shimmered with tension. Inside the hangar, Ethan Cole checked his old rifle again, though he knew it was useless against ships. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a father trying to protect his family. Still, he couldn't let fear control him. His daughter Lila and the alien girl Arinal were counting on him. Arinal stood near the window, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They are close, she whispered. Ethan looked at her. Are they your people? Yes, she said quietly. But not all of them follow my mother. Some serve those who took the throne. They want to find me before she does. Ethan frowned. And what happens if they find you first? She hesitated. Then, there will be no peace in my worlds again. He didn't understand all of it, but he didn't need to. All he knew was that he had promised to keep her safe. That was enough. He turned to Lila. Pack your things. If they come too close, we'll move through the canyon. Lila nodded silently, holding Arinal's hand tightly. Hours passed. The wind grew stronger, whistling through cracks in the metal walls. Ethan tried to rest but couldn't. Every sound outside made him reach for his rifle. Then, just before dawn, the ground shook. A large ship was landing nearby. Ethan ran to the window. The ship was massive, sleek, silver, and covered in glowing blue lines. Soldiers in armored suits stepped out, their movements perfectly in sync. Their helmets reflected the snow like mirrors. Arinal's breath caught. That is my mother's crest, she whispered. They found me. Ethan looked at her. Your mother? You mean the queen? She nodded. Yes, but she does not know if I am alive. If she sees me, she will take me home. I do not want to leave yet. Lila turned to her, confused. Why not? You'll be safe with your mother. Arinal looked at Ethan, her eyes soft. Because I already have family here. Ethan didn't know what to say. He felt something heavy in his chest, a mix of pride, sadness, and fear. Before he could reply, a voice echoed through the valley, broadcasted from the ship. It was calm but powerful. This is Queen Velsha of the Seven Worlds. I come for my daughter. Whoever shelters her, come forward. No harm will be done. Ethan froze. The words were clear, translated through his old scanner. Arinal touched his arm gently. She speaks truth. My mother does not lie. But there are others here who do. Even as she spoke, another ship descended behind the Queen's vessel, black, sharp-edged, and menacing. Its markings were different. Soldiers in darker armor began to spread out, scanning the ice with heavy weapons. Arinal's eyes widened. They are not my mother's men. They are the usurpers. Ethan looked at the two forces facing each other. So they're both here for you, she nodded. And they will fight. Ethan clenched his jaw. Not while you're standing here. He ran to his sled and started the engine. Both of you, get in, now! The sound of the engine echoed through the canyon as the sled burst out of the hangar. Snow flew behind them as they sped down the valley. The ships noticed. Lights turned, alarms flared, and drones chased after them. Lila held tight to Arinal as Ethan weaved through the rocks and ice pillars. Dad, they're following us, she shouted. I see them. Ethan yelled, gripping the controls. The old sled trembled under the strain, but he pushed it harder. Laser beams cut through the snow around them, missing by inches. Arinal raised her hands, her silver eyes shining bright. Energy flowed from her palms like waves of light. The snow lifted, swirling into a blinding storm that covered their escape. The drones lost track of them. When they finally stopped inside a cave, Ethan turned to her. How long can you keep doing that? Not long, she said weakly. It takes much from me. He put a hand on her shoulder. You've done enough. I'll handle the rest. Outside, explosions echoed in the distance. The two alien forces had started fighting. Blue and red flashes lit up the sky. The Queen's voice came again through the storm.
Arinal!
If you can hear me, I'm coming to you. Arinal looked at Ethan. She knows my name. Ethan sighed. Then it's time. When the battle moved closer, he made a decision. He couldn't hide her forever. He had to bring her to her mother, but safely. He stepped out of the cave, waving an old distress flare. The bright red light cut through the snow. A drone spotted him and hovered closer. Identify yourself, it said in a mechanical voice. I'm the one who saved the girl. Ethan shouted. Don't shoot! Moments later, the Queen's ship descended nearby. The ground trembled as it landed. The air shimmered and a tall figure stepped out. A woman dressed in flowing silver armor, her presence strong and regal. Her eyes glowed with the same light as Arinal's. Ethan pushed forward, guiding Arinal by the hand. When the Queen saw her daughter, her composure broke. She rushed forward and knelt, tears shining on her cheeks. My child, she whispered, holding Arinal close. Arinal smiled softly. Mother. Ethan stood back, unsure what to do. He felt both relief and sadness. The Queen turned to him. You are human, she said, her voice formal. You found her. Yes, Ethan replied. She crashed near my home. I couldn't just leave her. The Queen looked at him deeply. You saved the heir of 7 worlds. Our laws demand we honor such courage. Before he could respond, the sound of engines roared behind them. The enemy ship had returned, and soldiers poured out, firing at will. Ethan shielded Lila as explosions lit the snow. Arinal stepped forward, her small frame glowing with pure light. "Stop!" she cried. A wave of energy burst from her, freezing every soldier in place. The sky turned white with brilliance, and then all was silent. When the light faded, the attackers were gone. Only snow remained. The queen stared at her daughter in awe. "You have grown, my child." Arinal looked at Ethan. "He helped me learn courage." The queen turned to him again. "You protected her when the stars forgot us. For that you are forever welcome among the 7 worlds." She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of great honor. Ethan nodded, humbled. "I just did what any father would do." Before leaving, Arinal hugged Leela tightly. "You will always be my sister," she whispered. "I will come back." Ethan watched as the ship rose into the sky, leaving trails of blue light across the horizon. The storm had ended. The valley was quiet again. Days later, back in his cabin, Ethan found a small silver pendant on his table. It glowed faintly with a symbol of 7 stars. A message appeared above it in soft light. "To the man who gave a lost child warmth in the snow, the 7 worlds will never forget." Ethan smiled quietly. Lila looked up at him. "Dad, do you think we'll see her again?" He looked out the window at the stars. "Yes," he said softly. "One day." And far away among the 7 worlds, a young queen stood on her throne, looking at the same stars, whispering,